Thank you, Danny and Liz. Thank you, boys. Only Randy knows what that's about.
You forgot to say it's a wonderful or
It's
wonderful.
wonderful, wonderful. All we need is bubbles. And I think you need an accordion to make those.
One and two.
Andy, have you ever heard of Sing Along with Mitch?
Can't say that I have. Oh.
Yeah.
Joanne, you've never heard of it? Sing Along with Mitch?
Really?
The little
Linda?
kid with the beard.
Yeah, we're old, but you're old. You ought to know. Sing Along with Mitch.
You can hold his hand.
When I think of Lawrence Welk, I think of Sing Along with Mitch. I don't know if they came along near the same time, but it's about to play. But you would tune into TV as a full orchestra, and they would play every kind of song imaginable. I mean, Red River Valley, pop songs. And they had the words that would scroll at the bottom of the screen,
Right.
and had a bouncing ball.
Uh-huh.
And Mitch would say, follow the bouncing ball. And it was a tremendous band, because they could play anything. They could play.
It's the earliest form of karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'd sing along. You'd sing along. And then later on, when maybe at the same time, you could go to the movie theater, and then that concept was in almost all of the cartoons. The cartoons would have a song, and they would have a bouncing ball, and you'd sing along with the cartoon. Yeah, Romans chapter 1 there, Andy. Sing along with Mitch. I don't even know what his last name is. Mitch Miller? Mitch Miller? Yeah, you're right. Mitch Miller.
Band.
And he was the A&R man for Columbia Records.
And man, it's black and white. It's as black and white as you can possibly be. And sang songs. And I'm sure I learned a lot of the old classic songs. Should we come around the mountain? You know, just anything, just any kind. It wasn't highbrow music. It was probably some classical music, but most of it was just kind of sing around the campfire kind of stuff, and popular songs that were being played on the radio at the time.
They're like Good Night Irene.
Yeah, yeah. Our good night, Miss Calabash, wherever you are.
Oh, that's Durante.
Yeah, Jimmy Durant. Had to have a big nose like that sing. Well, we're here in the book of Romans, and Paul starts out by saying, he has kind of a lengthy introduction, but starting right there, let's take verse 18 at the top there. He says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. He says, now I'm going to be talking to you about salvation, but the reason we need salvation is because of the wrath of God. And I remember I said to you, and I don't know if you embrace it or not, but being saved means being saved from God. Doesn't mean they never talked about the wrath of the devil, or the devil's going to get you, because the devil's never going to get you. He's a problem, he's a troublemaker, and he's an enemy. But Jesus said, this is why we say in Alabama, if you're going to be scared of somebody, be scared of God. The Bible talks a lot about the fear of God. I feel that a lot of people don't understand it. John, in the 4th chapter of his epistle, the small epistle, 1 John, he says, there's no love in fear, that perfect love casts out fear. Well, he's talking about a process of maturity. Yes, later on, but to remember what the writer of the Proverbs says. He says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So that's where you start. You start scared. And then, yes, as we learn that he loves us and we love him, it's like the relationship. There was a time when I really feared my dad and my mom as we became friends. As we became adults, along with them, we had conversations with them, and we talked, and we were adults together. And he was still my dad, still told me what to do and gave me advice. And I either took the advice or didn't. And we've had a friendship. It's different then. So it's the same with God. Now, so this whole chapter is about sin. And he says salvation is salvation from sin, because if we sin, we're going to suffer the consequence of sin, which is God is going to punish us for sinfulness. There is a consequence to sin. When we break the rules, bad things happen. And he says, we need to know that. Now, what's important to see here, and I've drawn it to our attention, we've looked at it, is that he says there are people who, he starts with idolatry. There are people who know there's a God by looking around nature, and yet they take some stone or wood and they build them an idol. So idolatry is kind of like the top of Paul's list. Do you remember what's at the bottom of the list? Kind of like the most insignificant kind of, why would you put it in this list at all? Do you remember what it was? Disobedient to parents.
Yeah.
So he kind of moves from the idolaters to the homosexuals. Now, so he kind of moves down that list. But idolaters and homosexuals on this list, and also on this list are people who don't obey their moms and dads. There's something to learn there, is that you and I have a strange way of looking at sin. That's what this message might be entitled tonight. Our strange way of looking at sin. Because we think there are big sins and little sins, don't we? We think there are bad sins and then sins that are not quite so bad. We have lies, but what also do we have? Little white lies, and they're really not all that bad. So right up here, Paul is trying to say, no, disobedience is disobedience. Breaking the law is breaking the law. Disobeying God is disobeying God, and it's sin, and sin is the problem. Here's something we do. I want to tell you something. Morality, being moral, morality is a human invention. Morality has to do with how do you feel about it, or what are your feelings about good and bad. Morality is something that you and I have invented. It wasn't invented by God. Let me demonstrate. We look at some of the sins that are mentioned, and some of them look like, it looks like good on one hand, and here he has a list of bad. And when we think of the bad, we think of dirty, things that are dirty, things that defile you, things that are morally wrong. But you know what, if you're dealing with morality, you can talk yourself into believing that something isn't dirty. Let's start with the idolater. There's a person out there in the jungles of Africa, and they carve up a tree stump in the shape of a monkey, and they pray to it. All right? Is that person a bad person? Is he a mean, bad, dirty, filthy person? Probably not. Maybe not. He lives out in the jungle. What kind of meanness could he get into? But he's an idolater. He's worshiping this stump. And we could say, and you see what I'm doing, that's a way of looking at this as a sense of morality. Now, I could say, number two, he's never heard about God. Nobody's ever mentioned. He doesn't even have the word God in his vocabulary. There's not a church out there. He doesn't have a Bible. No preacher has ever visited him. There's not a church or a Sunday school. How can you say that is a person who's going to hell? He's never heard of Jesus. He's never even imagined Jesus. He's never, we could also say, all he does is live, and of course this is the myth of that we cast also in the American Indian. He's living in harmony with the trees and the birds, and he's at one with nature. And so as a part of his view of nature, he carved up this statue, and he prays to it because he thinks it might be important. Let's go on to the homosexual. You know, homosexuality, you know what it's really about? It's about two people who love each other. About two people who love each other. And they don't really want to hurt anybody. They just want to have a love, a warmth, and intimacy. They want to care for each other. All they want to do in the privacy of their home is just love each other. You see, what we can do with every one of those sins is we can pick them out and we can talk about them and we can begin to say, you know, it's really, these people who disobey their parents, okay, let's work with that one. That's the last one. Let's moralize it a little bit. Children who disobey their parents. Help me, come on. What if they have crummy parents? What if they have an abusive father or a cheating mother? What if they have criminals for parents? What if they're drug addicts? Should they obey their parents? Well, that's a problem, isn't it? If you're using morality, you'd say, well, not all parents are good. What if their parents say, hey, come here, we're going to carve this stump and we're going to a monkey head and we're going to pray to it? That's when you're talking about sin as morality. All right, let's talk. I want to throw back something. This is a real large jump. Let's go back to Noah and the ark. You see the connection, don't you? Yeah, me neither. But Noah is going to put animals on the ark. What kind of animals? You got your green alligators and long-necked geese.
Every one of them.
Every one of them.
One of each kind.
Two of each.
Or 7 of each kind. It depends on which part of the Bible you read. But there are certain kinds. I mean, you have to have so many of this kind and so many of that kind. What kind is that?
The clean and unclean.
Clean and unclean.
Yeah.
All right? How is Noah going to figure out what a clean animal is or an unclean animal is? Now, we know how Moses did because in the law it says a possum is unclean and a lamb is clean. And it makes us a list. And this is unclean. Pigs, because they have a split hoof. And unclean is over here. That's in the law of Moses about 600 or 800 or 1,000 years after the flood. When Noah was bringing animals onto the ark, how did he know what a clean animal was and an unclean animal? Because he didn't have any law or rules or regulations. It's because the word clean is like the word dirty. Because do you know what we think is the opposite of clean?
Dirty.
Dirty. But what really in the Bible, what's the opposite of clean? Unclean, which is completely different. Completely different. Because he wasn't saying that's dirty. Because you see, as you looked at the animals, they really had no concept of whether something had dirt on it or not. They didn't take baths. They didn't hardly even wash their clothes. Cleanliness is kind of like a 20th century thing because we learned about germs. And we learned about microscopic little buglies and uglies. But believe me, even now, you go traveling into Europe, you go to Paris, those people don't know what a bath is, I guarantee you. The women don't shave in lots of places. I don't think there's really a big market for body deodorants in France and a lot of places all over Europe. And you go to the Middle East, buddy, and I tell you what, you can't even find a razor for the women or the men. No. So, the word tahor is the word translated clean. Or lo tahor means unclean. And clean is a really, really bad translation of that because really what it means is approved and unapproved. You see, we can look at anything, and you can look at a pig. Where were we seeing? Terry, well, was we were eating Friday night and the girl said she had a pet pig. What? Was it Foodland last Sunday? She's talking about one that's got one with a big belly, but she's got a pet pig. I guarantee you that pig is not unclean. It's probably very clean. But Jews are not supposed to eat it. But you can look at it and say, well, that pig is just as clean as me and you. And we begin to develop a misunderstanding about sin. Because you can look at anything and say, well, That's not because that's not nasty. That's not unclean. That's not dirty. That's just something that they see themselves differently than you and I. They have a different experience of that than you and I do. Now, I'm not saying the biblical language is wrong. I'm saying that they knew what they were talking about, and I think in our modern day that we're the ones who distorted it, we've twisted it, we've changed it so that we're not getting the message. Because if it's just a moral question, it can be anything you want it to be. If you think about it and study it. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. Ann Sanders gave you this for Christmas. It's one of them. It's an apple. Now, we don't know what fruit was the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. But John Milton convinced us all, through Paradise Lost and through modern culture, that it was an apple because it sounds just like an apple, like what the serpent is describing. The serpent convinced Eve to eat the apple by persuading her to believe that it was all right. Didn't he? That's what he did. It's okay. He used morality. He used rationality. He says, look at that. Is anything wrong with that? It's pretty, ain't it? He says, how did King James Version say it? It's pleasant to the eyes. And guess what? It'll make you wise. It'll make you, I'll be smarter if I eat that. Everything the devil said was true. It was pretty. Pleasant to the eyes. Pretty. And believe me, the reason Noah knew about clean and unclean is because that was the very first lesson that man ever learned about sin ever. The apple, that's not approved. This is not approved. Do not eat this. It's unclean. It's unclean. That concept hadn't been developed yet, but he said, this is not approved. All these other fruits and vegetables have my approval. Now, that's what clean and unclean is about. Now, how did Noah, how did it come down to Noah? You see, clean and unclean for Noah wasn't dietary. It wasn't about the animals you could eat. Well, we think that we actually call them the dietary laws. The dietary laws. And Jewish people, Hebrew people, still observe certain things they will eat, certain things they will not eat. We know without question that when Noah was picking out clean and unclean, it had nothing to do with what you eat. How do we know that? True.
Because of the hoofs?
No.
See what we're going to eat.
That's right.
It's personal preference, I guess.
They were for sacrifice, not.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you just went-
When you get to Genesis chapter 9, everybody's getting out of the ark,
Right.
and God says, all right, let me tell you something now. You can start eating that. So yeah, start eating all that. He says, but there's kind of a catch to that.
Yeah.
Remember what the catch was? They're going to eat you too.
Two.
Yeah.
They're going to eat you. Lions,
And
tigers, and bears.
Oh, my.
They had said, hello, little bear, or hello, Mr. Lion. And God was saying, they're going to eat you. They're going to eat you. Genesis chapter 9. So they had never killed and eaten an animal before. Never.
Because even nature, through the fall, was flipped on its head.
Oh, yeah. So we know that when it came to clean and unclean animals, it was about sacrifice. Now, when was the very first animal killed because of sin? That's a sacrifice.
When God made clothes for Adam and Eve,
That's right. He didn't use apple leaves.
out of animal skin.
Or fig leaves didn't. That's why a lot of people believe, many scholars believe that there was a fig, but a fig doesn't look very pretty to me. I would never look at a fig and say, well, that really looks like it'd make you smarter. Apple kind of looks like. You know something else about an apple that Satan didn't even use. I believe he had it in his arsenal, but there's something about an apple he could have said. Remember? Apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's right. This will keep you from having to go to the doctor, Eve. She'd say, what's a doctor? And he'd say, that's beside the point. I'm just trying to tell you here that eat this apple. That's what I'm trying to say. They had never eaten an apple. But yes, God took the life of some kind of animal. And you can imagine that was just something where a naked animal went off somewhere without his coat. But more than likely, he killed that animal. I believe he killed it right in front of Adam and Eve. They'd never seen anything die, not even a leaf on a tree or a butterfly. And God said, you think you're naked, we're going to make you some clothes. And so he killed an animal, and he took the skin, hides, and made them clothing. We have no idea about how all this transpired. It may have been just miraculously instantaneous, whatever, who knows. But I believe it was horrific. Because that was not the last time that Adam and Eve would do things that they felt were wrong. And we don't know exactly, the Bible doesn't say, but I believe that from time to time, who knows how they would decide, every month, once a week, when we get to feeling bad about something we've done, I believe that they would take an animal, that very same animal that God had used to make them clothes. And they would say, this is what God did when we sinned. And so they were imitating that. And I believe that's how animal sacrifice began. Now your anthropologists and your archaeologists, they probably disagree with that all day long, unless they're Christian. Sounds absurd to them. But it makes sense to me, and it is a part of what the Bible implies. Now, we don't know that for sure, and we're not certain. There's never a verse in the Bible that said that Adam and Eve got together and offered an animal sacrifice to God. Why is it that we might assume that maybe they did? What's the evidence?
Cain and Abel.
That's right. Cain and Abel both offered sacrifices to God. They did. So, I believe it's because they've been watching their mom and dad do it for many years. These are men now. These are not little boys. You kind of think a little boy killed his brother. That's not it at all. Grown men. And Cain killed Abel. Now, let's look at the sacrifices of Cain and Abel. What did Abel offer? Do you remember? A lamb from his flock. What did Cain offer?
Fruit.
First fruit. Whatever it was. Could have been grain, could have been vegetables. But whatever he harvested.
Something he grew.
Something he grew out in the field. And they both brought them and they offered them to God. Okay? What did God say?
Abel was approved and Cain was unapproved.
I appreciate you using that word.
Yeah.
You saved a lot of sermon time. Yes. One of them was approved. One of them was disapproved. All right, now. What did Cain do?
Got angry and jealous.
He got mad and killed his brother, didn't he? What was he supposed to do? What was he supposed to do? Yeah, he's supposed to say, okay, I get it. That this is not approved. What he was thinking was, hey God, there's nothing wrong with this squash. God, these peas are perfectly good. This banana, this is the best banana. But you see, that's moralizing. That's thinking, this is perfectly good food. There was was only one thing wrong with the apple. There's only one thing wrong with eating the apple. What was it?
God said not to do it.
God said no. That's the only thing. Yeah, it's pretty, and yeah, it tastes good. Oh, and make you smart. But there's one thing wrong with it. God said don't eat it. God said don't eat it, and that is what made it a sin.
Right.
Nothing else. We can take anything else, anything in the world you want to do. You can set it in front of you, and you can figure out a way to talk yourself into doing it, because it wouldn't hurt nobody, and it'd be fine. Nobody'd know, nobody'd care, and it's really not harmful, and it's pretty, and make you smart. We can figure out a way to do something that God has said don't do if we use our rationality and our logic and our morality. There's two homosexual men over there. Well, they just love each other. They're just like a man and wife. They just love each other. It's just about love. You're not against love, are you? Makes you feel bad if you just reject people because all in the world they do is just love each other. There's not anything in the world wrong with eating an apple, unless God has said it's not approved. It's unclean. That's what the word tahor means. It means don't eat it, or don't use it, don't sacrifice it, don't offer it. What Cain was supposed to do was say, okay, I understand. I did something, and God said, God didn't get mad. Cain did. He didn't pitch a fit. He didn't wear him out. He didn't punish him. He just said, oh, no. He said, no, that's not approved. You know how many times a day God says that to me? I don't fly off the handle. I said, okay. And I tried what he should have done. He says, you know what? I believe I can look at what Abel offered, and I'll offer that or something like it the next time. Well, maybe he offered just something like it. And God said, no, that's not approved either. He said, okay, all right. You're not supposed to get mad and kill your brother because you're jealous. That's how Noah knew what a clean animal and an unclean animal was. Because I believe people just like Cain and Abel for hundreds of years had been offering to God. And God would say, no. Or he'd say, yes. And so they began to understand. And was it based upon how, if the animal had the mange, or what kind of hoof he had, or is it because these were bad animals and these were good animals? I've been watching The Lion Guard for a while, folks. I've been having to watch it. So I was at home alone the other day with two little girls and watching The Lion Guard. The Lion Guard is a spin-off cartoon from The Lion King. I can see all of y'all lighting up now that y'all know exactly what The Lion King is, so this illustration is not going anywhere. And what the Lion Guard is that there's this group of goody animals, and they protect all the other animals. You know who the bad animals are? They're the animals that want to come in and eat you. Well, listen, if a lion is going to, first of all, if we're having an election, I'm not going to elect a lion to be the leader of the Lion Guard. I think he's going to eat you. You know, first chance he gets, he's going to eat you. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. Hey, yeah, I'm like the leader. Yeah, just bite your head off. And so I said, girls, there aren't any bad animals and good animals. I said, they're showing these buzzards like they're the most terrible people on the savannah. I said, if you didn't have buzzards, you'd be up to your eyeballs in dead other animals who just died from old age or falling out of a tree or whatever. So buzzards are great. They clean everything. They eat things that nobody else wants. I said, we really didn't turn into a sermon. It was just like, I said, there aren't good animals and bad animals. And I said, almost all of the animals on the savannah eat other animals. And I said, it's not wrong. I said, now that is the circle of life. I said, that's the circle of life. That's what the circle of life is. So, it's a cartoon. So, and they just looked at me like, shut up, Pops.
Yeah.
And,
It's a wonder Avery didn't say that.
yeah, they're not allowed to say shut up. So they were eating waffles and stuff that I fed them, so they felt obligated to just look at me. And Okay. It's the Lion King, Pops. Loosen up. Lighten up a little bit. We draw the strength here. Now, nobody either needs or wants you to call them a sinner, or to come up to somebody and say, "You're sinning. That's a sin. Don't do that." It's, nobody wants. We've never been compelled to tell people that they're sinners or that they're sinning. When you become a Christian, you don't join the sin police. It's not a part of our job description. Because what you and me think about sin is because I think some things are dirty and you think they're just fine. When I became a Christian, I had some good Christian friends who weren't really my friends at all. And they told me that all that Jimi Hendrix rock and roll Beatles music that I listened to was a sin. I found out that's not a sin. It's not even a sin to listen to Black Sabbath and AC/DC. It's just not. Nobody wants that. It doesn't matter what you think or what you believe or what I believe about sin. You know what's important? What does God think about that? Now, when I debate with people and people want to have a discussion, they would say, "What do you believe about that?" I just start saying, "It don't matter what I believe." As far as, let's say, if a man wants to go out into the jungle and take him an axe and chop up something that looks like a monkey head and worship and pray to it, I don't care. That don't bother me. He's not bothering anybody. Let him go. I ain't going to track him down or put him in jail. Or two men, two women, they say that they're in love. What are you going to do? You want to make it illegal? You want to put them in prison, put them in jail? I said, yeah. But I think it's really, really important. You see, we believe that the Bible is not just our scripture. It's not just our holy book. We believe that the Bible is the Word of God. Now, God doesn't talk to me. He doesn't give me news updates or his opinions, or he doesn't text me. But I study the Bible all the time. And every word in the Bible isn't a "and God said" word. Sometimes other people are talking. But all of it together, even where someone else is talking, we believe it's been put in this Bible because God wants it there and he wants us to hear it and read it. Because so it reflects the way he thinks about something or the way he sees something. I don't think it's important at all for you to know what I think about a sin. But it's really important to find out what God has said about it. Because let me tell you something. Like I said, the point I was trying to make a moment ago is that me and God don't agree on everything. There are some, you know what? I can't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to eat an apple. If I was Eve, I'd say, if she'd asked me, "What do you think, John?" I'd say, "It looks perfectly good to me. It looks just like a good, try it. I don't know, what harm could it do?" That'd be my advice. Boy, that's terrible. And it's not dirty or filthy or poisonous or nasty. This is the nature of every sin. It's not harmful. It's not hurtful. It's just unapproved. Why? Because he's God, and he can do that if he wants to. He can say, "Don't eat the apple." Why? Just don't eat it. Just don't eat it. Because if you do, you're just inviting death into your life. That's why. We can do just like the serpent, and we can take any sin or temptation there is and say, "You know, there's really no harm in it. It's not a bad thing. It does it in the privacy of his home and does not hurt anybody. It's okay." And we can do that with any sin in the whole world. Sin is a religious term. It's a religious term. It's about God. And it's not about what I think is right or wrong. It's about what God thinks is approved or disapproved. Clean and unclean is not about whether it has dirt on it or whether it's been washed and it's clean. Tahor means it's approved or it's not approved. I can guarantee you there's nothing nasty or unclean about eating pork. But in the laws that came down to Israel, God said, don't eat anything swine, don't eat any pork. I kind of think it's because he was mad at the Israelites anyway. Kind of, no bologna, sorry, no.
No bacon.
No bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. And so the Jews deserve that. We nasty Gentiles, we eat whatever we want to eat. So, now, there's more to this, but as I look at these sins in Romans chapter 1, it's very important. I don't want to tell someone that they're a sinner or that this is a sin. But I said, I believe there's a God. And whatever you believe about this sin or whatever I believe about it, let me just tell you. Right here he says he doesn't approve of it. Now, you may just believe the Bible is full of fairy tales, that it's just full of myths and stories. Okay, I believe you're wrong. I disagree with you. You may not even believe there's a God. But I don't want you to be hurt at me because you think that I don't like you because you're an idol worshiper or you're gay or you disobey your parents. That's not it at all. I'm not after you. I don't think you need to be punished or you need to be mistreated or that we need to hate you. I don't hate you at all. I love you. And I love you so much, I want to tell you, you do not trifle with God. I don't care if you're one of his children or if you're not. If you don't believe in him, I said, what I want to tell you is that you don't need to be trying to figure out how I feel about your sin. If there's the slightest possibility that there's a God and he believes this away, and one day after this life is over, you're going to stand before him. That's right there is going to matter. That right there is when it's going to matter whether you ate the apple or not. Yeah. You know? And I'm not telling you this. I'm not saying you're a sinner. I'm saying there's a list that God gave, and you're on that list. And I just want to tell you, look into that. See if I'm not telling you the truth. And I'm not telling you because I don't like you, or I don't love you, or because I hate you, or I'm against you. None of that, that's all far from the truth. Let me tell you what. God has brought gay people into my life. I didn't put out an ad or anything. But ever since I was in the first grade, gay people have been a part of my life before I knew what gay people were. They were in my neighborhood. They were in my family. Gay people, homosexual people. I didn't understand it all, but I came along to understand it. Listen, I love gay people. I love them. I want to try to reach them, and I don't want them to think that if I disapprove of their life, that matters. God loves them, just like he loves me. But if you think because God loves you, and he does, he loves you more than you can ever imagine. If you think because of that love, you can eat the apple, you're wrong. You're wrong. Do I wish it was different? Yes.